Well, it's another cold one. All right, what's up, everybody? Another cold night in New York City, pretty quiet night. I want to wish everybody a happy Sunday. It should be a pretty busy week, to be honest. So we have a lot to talk about. It should be the eventful week, a very exciting week as well. As always, welcome to Midtown Manhattan on 57th Street. New York City's Billionaires Row. We'll get started in a minute. I see UniJ23. What's up? Sue Rollins, Middle Age Grind. Alan, what's going on? Hopefully you're doing good in the snowstorm. No snow here in New York. It's just bone-chillingly cold. And maybe, just maybe, we're going to get some snow tonight into tomorrow, but it's freezing. I think it's only maybe like 28 degrees out, but with the wind, it is quite windy. As you can see here, beautiful American flags flying in the breeze, but of course that makes it colder. Probably feels like it's in the teens. Anyway, Michelle is here. What's going on? Greetings from Alabama. Cheers. Josh L. It's good to see you. There's plenty of snow in Ohio right now. Doc 7, Sabrina Fair, Richard Scott. This is currently 67 degrees in Miami, Florida. It's pretty cold for you guys. It's pretty cold. Omar is here. What's going on? Tina D. Welcome. Nicholas. It says MetLife Stadium was cold. Oh, that's right. Yeah, you were telling me you were going to go there. How was that? Sally, Nil. They still have the Christmas tree inside of the newly opened Four Seasons on Billionaires Row. Omar, Reggie, 44. What's going on, everybody? Another beautiful night in New York City, but just cold. Connie Rees, welcome. Lauren Rowe. All right, let's go around the block. We'll get started here in just a moment. I see Steph UF. What's up, Steph? Alina Sandoval, Richard Scott is wishing you all a happy 2025. Right back at you. 2025 is going along swimmingly so far. New England Crypto, good to see you as well. We have Bitcoin just kind of consolidating right above the 50-day. If you look at the two previous daily closes, we're consolidating right above it. Hopefully we get a break to the upside this week. Who knows? Asia markets are trending lower tonight. Japan is probably going to kind of bring everything down, but the night is still young. We'll see. Anyway, we'll go ahead and get started with the audio and visual check. So if you guys can hear us, also if we're streaming in 1080p, just go ahead and give a thumbs up in the chat. And we'll go ahead and get started on this very cold night in New York City, right outside of the Aston Martin showroom. We're now going to bang this right on Park Avenue. Very quiet. Tonight, very quiet, calm, cool Sunday night in New York. Not a lot of cars out on the road. Maybe that's, we do have the newly implemented congestion pricing, which just went into effect today, which means all New Yorkers who are going to drive south of 60th Street are going to need to pay that congestion toll, which I believe is around $9. Anyway, it looks like the audio and video are good. So good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Walks in Wall Street. It is a beautiful very cold and very windy, and maybe we'll have some snow if we get lucky. I think that'll be cool to see. Sunday night here in New York. It's pretty much back to normal now on Wall Street. Most everybody is going to be back into the office starting bright and early first thing on Monday. Now, yes, we're going to get back into the swing of things for earnings season. We have a few notable companies coming up that we are going to talk about that are reporting earnings next week. But what I really want to focus on first is a lot of the tech news that we have coming out really right now and into next week. I'm not sure, maybe some of you are in Vegas right now because we have the CES 2025 tomorrow, which I will be tuned into. Hopefully many of you will get the opportunity to tune in as well. We're going to have the CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen, will be giving his keynote speech at CES 2025. Across the street, we're looking at 425 Park Avenue. This is one of the most new, eco-friendly Class A office towers in New York City. And pretty soon, hopefully, we're going to have construction on 350 Park Avenue as well, which will be the Citadel Securities office tower. So there's going to be a lot of tech news. Obviously, a lot of that talk is probably going to be around AI, artificial intelligence. But I have a prediction. I think there'll also be a lot of conversation and a lot of talk about a new wave of energy, which would be nuclear power and nuclear energy. If you're at CES, if you're going to have all these big CEOs, particularly NVIDIA up there, I think you're also going to have the CEO of Google's Waymo unit, which is the autonomous driving unit of Alphabet. There's probably also going to be a lot of data center talk. And if there's data center talk, well, how are you going to power all of these data centers? Because it's going to take multitudes of power to power all these AI-enabled data centers. Well, you're also going to need the power conversation. So I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see some energy companies, particularly energy companies that specialize and are moving forward with nuclear energy and nuclear power. Speaking of which, as we direct our attention over to the front doors of the beautiful 432 Park Avenue, there was a major government contract that was just signed last week, I believe. It was over $800 million government contract to Constellation Energy to provide power to the U.S. government. So these are massive, massive, not only government contracts, but if you think about the big tech companies like, Alphabet, Facebook, Microsoft, they are also not only signing deals with these energy companies like Constellation Energy and many others, they are also exploring small cell, single cell reactors to be built on premise where they will build their own data centers. Now, before we really kind of dive into the stream and get started, there was a great, and I'm talking about an amazing, amazing article that was written this weekend. It just so happened to be the cover story of Investors Business Daily. So if you haven't checked that out, I would highly advise you to go read that article. It was very good. Talked all about AI, the demands for energy consumption of AI, and how we're going to meet those demands, and what companies such as Microsoft, such as Amazon, such as Oracle, Alphabet, you name it, what are they doing right now to invest for a nuclear future? So check that out. If you just go to investorsbusinessdaily.com, it is the cover story of the paper today. Obviously, Meta announced, what's going to be their largest operational data center for AI is going to be built in Louisiana, and they just announced that they are accepting RFPs, requests for proposal, for on-premise nuclear power generation to power their data centers. Okay, with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Let's head into Midtown. We'll head to 5th Avenue and we'll get started. So let me say hello to everybody in the chat. I see Dee's here, John, good to see you. Lance, Professor Dario, always a pleasure to have you in the chat. Doc 7, Reggie 44, the one and only Clarence Jackson is joining us. Harry is here. Ivan Hernandez, Andy S, Tatted T, welcome. The Investigator is here. Hawaii Optimus 17. I see Lance. I see Mohammed. Free Speech Now is here from Texas. Good to see you. Free Speech Now. Anderson, welcome from Brazil. I'm sure you are going to be excited to listen into a lot of the CES speakers. This week, obviously, Jensen, the CEO of NVIDIA, will be giving his keynote speech tomorrow. Everybody's most likely going to be tuned in for that. Fa XX from Florida, Palm Beach. Wish I was there tonight. It's freezing. New England Crypto. What is going on? Hope you're good. And Hill. What's going on? Now, is anybody in the audience, I might as well ask, anybody in Vegas right now, or is anybody going or planning on going to CES Las Vegas? I remember when I worked in tech in my previous working career, I would often attend, and it was a really good time. You know, trade shows are fun sometimes, a little bit exhausting in others, but I always like to listen to the keynotes. We're going to head to Fifth Avenue. Oh, Texan, very cool, says I'll be there tomorrow. That's awesome. Now, what are you most excited for? Are you going to listen to Jensen? Hopefully it'll be streamed. I'm assuming it'll be live streamed on YouTube. That's how I'm planning to participate in the event. Voss has just got back from Vegas, won't be attending CES, unfortunately. I also believe the CEO of Delta Airlines is going to speak too. Anyway, who knows? Brian, good evening. We're now on the corner of 5th Avenue and 57th Street. Pretty soon these holiday Christmas lights will be coming down. Mr. Fine Arts, as I was in Vegas, would really enjoy going to CES. Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. Do I think that there'll be any interesting catalysts for the market? I don't know. I think there will be if they start talking about nuclear energy, right? The article I was referring to just like 2 minutes ago, it was mainly AI focused, right? They were also talking about how NVIDIA may announce some new chip, particularly for desktop computing, trying to compete with Intel and the like. I don't know. I think I'm more interested just for my sake. I mean, we've been hearing about, semiconductors, NVIDIA, GPUs, CPUs, broad-based artificial intelligence, this, AI, that, a lot of buzzwords. But we really haven't had a lot of conversation about the energy piece. I mean, there's been some, but it's not like super exciting. I think there's been a little bit of froth. Maybe you could even say like a miniature bubble in the, nuclear power space. But I would be very interested to hear a little bit more, particularly from what Jensen has to say about all that. We'll see. Jonathan from Florida, very jealous of you right now. Blue Marlin says, does the traffic seem lighter due to the congestion tolls? Not really. I mean, it's a Sunday night in New York, and it's absolutely freezing outside. So I don't think it'll really make a material impact, to be quite honest. I'm not a fan of the congestion pricing. I think it's a little silly. But, I think it's going to be like $9 for people to drive south of 60th Street, unfortunately. April says, evening time, is New York City expecting snow tomorrow? I think so. At least that's what I've been told. That's what I've been hearing today. We're supposed to be getting some sort of precipitation, maybe about 2 inches, which is really nothing. I mean, compared to some of the snowstorms that we've had, 2 inches is really like a non-issue, but Mario, what's going on? Welcome. April Maid. Well, if we look at futures, I think S&P 500 E-mini futures are slightly lower tonight. You also see Asian markets falling a little bit, so we'll see if that rolls over into the U.S. markets on the open. It is possible. Chris B says, how much longer will Louis V keep the luggage up? Well, until the new flagship store is open, right? So they move the flagship across the street, and then they're going to construct something else there. So I think it's going to be up for a long time. We'll see. Hey, Charles Hong, what's up? This is Tom. Went to Delmonico's last night. Just lost your comment. Not as good as Wolfgang. Now, enlighten me on where the Wolfgang restaurant is. I think it's called... Is it called Puck? I think. Is that near Koreatown, like right on the 6 train entrance? If I'm remembering this correctly. I know there's some sort of steakhouse right on the 6 train entrance of 33rd Street, 6 train entrance. I think that's that steakhouse. I don't think I've ever been there, though. But yeah, Delmonico's. That's a good spot. Definitely a good spot. Oh, Charles Honk's Hudson Yards. Wow. Then I've definitely never been there. Very cool. Very, very cool. I'm going to try to get to as many comments as I can because I have gloves on tonight because it's so cold. So it's going to be hard to scroll. Brian says, Tom, 2 questions, if I may. Is there truly a congestion problem? And 2, if so, is there an alternative solution? I don't think so. Just to be quite honest, I mean, you'll have those areas of the city where it's always a horror show, right? The number one... Now, here's what I'll say. We're walking Midtown Manhattan, okay? In my opinion, the number one area of the city where you see crazy traffic, during rush hour, of course, is right through Soho, as you have the people trying to merge on the tunnel on Canal Street. And I think we've done many live streams or walks throughout the day, like right during rush hour when everybody's trying to leave the city. I mean, you'll have traffic backed up forever from people trying to leave New York to go to Jersey. So, look, the MTA claims that they want to implement the congestion pricing to raise some money to do some capital improvements and the like, but I mean, we could have like a 2-hour conversation about congestion pricing this, congestion pricing that. I think it's another grift, and New York City has proven itself that no amount of money they have, we could give the city a blank check of like $2 trillion, and they would not make any necessary capital improvements, and nothing would really get better. I know that kind of sounds negative. But again, one of the things we talked about is that money is really not an issue at all. If anything, money can exacerbate problems. The only thing that really changes, or effective change for good, is if you have good stewardship of the money, which we currently don't in New York City. We have gross incompetence and, quite frankly, maybe even some negligence. So, it's very difficult. It's like this. I mean, if you have a child, right, and if you give them $20 for lunch and they blow all the $20, and you give them a budget of like, okay, keep it below $10, and they keep asking you for more and more and more, if you give them $100, they're going to blow the whole 100, right? So that's the same thing with the city. No amount of money that we give these people are really going to make an effective change, in my view. So, I mean, I watch people, jumping over the turnstiles. Nobody pays for the bus. I never take the bus in New York City, but I actually had to take it today. Don't ask me why, but I had to take the bus today to go somewhere. Nobody paid for that bus. Everybody just walks on. The bus driver doesn't even look at you, and so nobody pays. So the congestion pricing is it's very hard to avoid that unless you go to extensive feats and lengths, so to speak. Another way to think about it is like a terrible money manager, right? If you have a hedge fund manager, he raises 40 million bucks and he trades the 40 million down to a million, then goes and raises more money. Why would you give that manager more money, right? You want to feed things that are doing well, right? You want to allocate capital to the most efficient capital allocator. So it's kind of the opposite of what we're doing. I mean, in a state like New York, it's an economic powerhouse. In a state like California, it's an economic powerhouse, right? California has one of the largest economies in the world. It's crazy to say that. A single state has a bigger economy in many countries across the globe, and yet they can't figure out the homeless crisis. The correlation there is that money is not the issue, right? They have unlimited money, okay? California has unlimited money. New York has unlimited money. It's the capital allocators and the stewards of that money who are going to make the change, right? Oftentimes, the more money you give to bad people, it creates an even bigger problem, right? I can create a mess with $100 billion. I can create an even bigger mess with $200 billion. So oftentimes, money is not the answer. I was listening to this interesting interview about startup culture in America, and Andreessen Horowitz, who's the CEO and founder of A16Z, which is like a big VC firm. Sometimes he says, the startups with the most resources, the most VC backing, the most money, are oftentimes the underperformers. It's when you have, these 2 or 3 guys in a closet on no budget, bootstrapping things, then it forces you to think critically. It tests your decision making, right? But if I'm a founder and I know I have, an unlimited bankroll, well, the pressure is really not going to be on me. If I'm having this massive salary and all my startup employees have these massive salaries, the incentive to really grind and work hard isn't really there sometimes. So I think that's the same thing with local politics, particularly here in New York City, cities like San Francisco. They know that they're on a gravy train. A lot of these government employees, particularly that lead a lot of these things, they make $200,000 a year plus. Some of them at the very, very top who are in charge of the homelessness, who are in charge of the MTA, they're knocking down $450,000, which is like how much an associate at an investment bank makes, right? So, so you really have no incentive to, fix that problem. But we'll see what happens. I don't really drive in the city. I know a lot of people do, but I don't really drive, so I really won't be impacted about this. It may be impacted inadvertently, perhaps, because maybe, services of other things are going to go up and the like, but we'll just have to see. We're now walking right outside of the Plaza Hotel. Patrick Lloyd says hello from North Carolina. I love New York City. I was there in April of 2023 and plan another trip. This reminds me of how much fun I had there. Yeah, I mean, the city is a lot of fun. And it's especially more fun in the spring and in the summer when you went. It's not really that fun when it's freezing out, like right now. The city looks very pretty during the holidays, but my favorite time in New York, by far, is the summertime. I mean, if you've ever, been to the East Village, the West Village, during the summer, like a Saturday night in the summer, unbelievable experience. It's just a very, very fun place. But we'll see. Now, to be fair, talking about the economics of all of this, many people want to compare, New York City transit to the transit of, let's say, Seoul, Korea, or major cities in Japan that have like very highly efficient and fast railways. It's a very old city, New York, and we have very old infrastructure, and it's very, very expensive to maintain, and it would be even more expensive for a total rip and replace, right? You got to understand, particularly some, major cities in Korea, a lot of things were destroyed totally during the Korean War, and after the Korean War, there was a lot of outside investment from the United States to build, the infrastructure that's so great there, so modern, Perhaps there's a cultural issue going on, why things are so crazy here as opposed to other countries, right? When you talk about maybe the social issues, I think that could be another discussion. But to be fair, kind of to New York, to balance the playing field, it's a very old infrastructure we have here. Very, very, very old. So this is the Park Lane Hotel that was recently renovated. Alfredo, what's going on? No drone sightings tonight. But it was funny. I think we had this conversation 2 nights ago about drone delivery, particularly. There was a really good article in Barron's that was kind of showcasing some of the possibilities with drone technology that I'm actually very, very bullish on. You know, everybody wants to talk about like the thematic or the themes of 2025 and so on, right? Obviously, the big themes we talk about are like AI, cloud computing, enterprise software. I think is going to have a big transition this year into, you know, more bullish territory after the 2021 really collapse in a lot of those SaaS stocks. But another kind of area of, hold on 1 second. Sorry. Another kind of area of the market that I think is poised for a long-term kind of bullish outlook is just convenience in general. As we're standing outside of the Ritz-Carlton, there's been a lot of data that's come out of Amazon particularly and Walmart that we've discussed, that the fastest growing part of their business is same-day delivery and order online, obviously e-commerce and in-store pickup for same day. What does that mean? That means people are commanding and they have a perceived value over extreme convenience. Not can you get it to me next week, not can you get it to me in 2 days, not even can you get it to me today, can you get it to me 2 days ago, right? People want things instantaneous and they're willing to pay up and they're willing to pay a premium for extreme convenience. So if you think about companies like Uber, you know, DoorDash, Lyft, even Amazon or Walmart, I think those companies are poised to do really, really well if you're selling convenience, right? Also, hospitality companies on the very, very high end, because there's a lot of people in the U.S. and around the world that have a hell of a lot of money. I kind of, attribute it and say cartoon-style money. Ever since the lows, the 2008 financial crisis, this accommodative stance, right, this decade of ZIRP, zero interest rate policy that we've had up until the inflationary push after COVID has caused unbelievable, what's the word I'm looking for here? Wealth inequality, where you've had the richest of society get so unbelievably rich, like the elites, the Zuckerbergs, really the top 10%, where money, it's become to the point where, money is not even real to them. So if you can provide such good service, such high convenience, you could you could name an unlimited price, and these people will pay it. So I think that's kind of why I think you saw like Hyatt brands perform so well in the previous year, right? A lot of hospitality geared to high end, super high end, has performed exceptionally well. This is my old building. Really miss living here. So as that ties back into drone delivery is that next step towards unbelievable convenience, right? Just think about human behavior and human nature. How many kids nowadays, order everything online, shopping on Amazon, communicating with their friends on FaceTime as opposed to meeting up with them in person, right? So look for businesses in 2025 that are leading in untouchable convenience, which also kind of goes back and circulates to one of Warren Buffett's investing principles, which is companies that have an unbelievably high moat, right? It's very difficult for a competitor to build the logistics layout that Walmart has. It's very, very difficult for a new company to come in and build out just the sheer distribution centers that Walmart has, that Amazon has. This is not possible. So I think those companies will continue to outperform and do better over time. And I think drone delivery is going to be a big part of that, in my view. Sabrina Fair says, it blows my mind to what lengths Americans will sacrifice privacy and freedom for convenience. 100% true. I mean, if we're being honest with each other, there's no privacy now. I mean, if we're being honest, okay? And I'm not here to argue, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I'll leave that up to people that are much smarter than me. But the government knows everything about you. You're on camera pretty much everywhere, right? Particularly in a major city. And the amount of data that corporations, governments, nation states have on all of us is just so unbelievable, right? They have all of our spending patterns. They know literally what time we wake up, what time we go to bed. They know our habits. How do you think people target ads at you, right? How do you think Meta and all of these other companies, Amazon, serve you up targeted ads? Because they know your search history. They know your browsing history. So I think that's going to get, that's just another, I guess, notch under the belt for the thesis of extreme convenience, right? This is the beautiful JW Marriott Essex House. Barry Jones' virtual reality technology may be another tech area to take off in the near future, maybe coupled with AI. Perhaps, check out that Investors Business Daily article, because they were briefly talking about doing a comparative analysis between augmented reality and virtual reality. And in the article, it kind of states that a lot of these major companies, particularly Meta, right, are kind of shifting their focus from a virtual reality more to like an augmented experience, right? I think you have like those Meta, like Ray-Ban glasses, which I think is probably more likely. Nobody wants to wear like such a clunky thing over their head, but if you could put on like a discrete pair of glasses or something like that, I think that's probably a little bit more user-friendly, maybe. Perhaps. I mean, it's interesting. Nate says, I expect no privacy. For sure. Here's a beautiful view of 15 Central Park West and 1 Central Park West. Anderson says, have you seen anybody using the Apple Vision Pro recently? Not out and about or on the street. And I think that was probably one of the things maybe I'd miscalculated last year. I'm not sure if you guys remember, we were covering live the launch of the Apple Vision Pro, and I was extremely, in hindsight, extremely over-optimistic on that product, but that's generally how I am, right? Generally speaking, I go all in on something, and I'm overly optimistic about it, and then I'm not saying the Vision Pro is never going to take off, but I think I've extremely overestimated how much people are actually going to be using the product. I mean, I guess here's a better question, Anderson. I mean, how many people in the audience right now either have an Apple Vision Pro right now or know somebody who does? Adam says, bro, no one wants a 10-pound computer on their face. I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. You were right, I was wrong on that one. Eddie says not. Bob says zero desire to get one. Professor Dario says not me. Paul says no. So pretty much nobody. I know one guy who's got it. This is 220 Central Park South. Now, kind of to stay on that conversation, right? The overarching theme that we were talking about is this week, not really on Wall Street, but in the world of investing. I think one of the biggest kind of catalysts this week is going to be the CES 2025 in Las Vegas. Tomorrow is the official start. I think there were some events tonight, but we're going to have Jensen, the CEO of NVIDIA, giving a keynote speech, and it's really probably going to be all AI themed, talking about some of their new Blackwell chips and the like. Obviously, that's a major theme, an investing theme or a thematic for 2025, but I also think, drone delivery and nuclear power as well will probably be pretty big. Hey, Ben is here. What's going on? I see Thomas. Welcome, Thomas. But I believe I mentioned this before. My one concern about all of the VR and AR headsets that a lot of these companies like Meta are investing billions and billions of dollars into, it seems as if you look around at other technologies, particularly I'll name drop one. It comes from our good friend Elon Musk. Quick time out though. This is Maria. This is a great restaurant. It was recently just totally gut renovated on the inside, and it's a really good spot. It's pretty expensive, but it's quite nice. You're right across the street from Central Park, and you have great views of 15 Central Park West and 1 Central Park West as well, looking into the Deutsche Bank Center. So if you're visiting New York City and you want a great restaurant on Central Park South, check out Maria. Just know it's going to be a little bit pricey. What I was going to say is, and again, I've hammered on this forever, so a lot of you guys are probably going to tune out, but we do have a lot of new viewers here. The way I think about technology, or the accelerant of technology, is really the decline in latency, right? Every single new tech cycle, we have lower and lower latency, right? You go back to dial-up internet, it takes you an hour to load one web page. Now you just ask, hey Siri, or you ask ChatGPT, or you ask Perplexity, and you can get any answer of anything in the world instantaneously. Well, not instantaneously, a few seconds.
I go to a different Chipotle.
What I think is going to happen next, particularly with Elon Musk and Neuralink, is that you will have no latency anymore. You will become one with machine. So instead of having these glasses, instead of having all of these devices out in the field, there could potentially be a day where we have no devices. I mean, think about how weird that would be. So in the year 2005 is when you saw the explosive growth in devices out in the field. Computers, cell phones, tablets, wearables, devices have exploded, right? And that's one of the reasons why Apple trades at such a premium, is because they have the most devices out in the field and they have a crazy upgrade cycle, right? So Apple is ringing the register every few years on a 100% upgrade cycle at $1,000 a pop, $2,000 a pop across a complete suite of devices. Well, what happens when we don't need devices? What happens when we have a chip inside of our head where we are the internet? Right? It sounds crazy, but that is where tech is moving us, particularly as you think about Neuralink. I've kind of thought about this before. National Party Cats is wrong. iPhone came out in 2007. I'm talking about before the iPhone, right? When you really first saw cell phones hit the field, where everybody needed to have one, it was right around 2005 is when everybody really kind of had a device, right? It was almost like if you don't have a device, it's a little weird. iPhone blew that up, and then you had the introduction of 3G, 5G technologies, or 3G, 4G technologies, when we could actually, watch YouTube on our phones or send emails without it taking 10,000 hours, or load web pages and video and stream. So, who knows? Hey, TPAC 5000, good to see you. This is when quantum computers come online. Cryptocurrency is toast. Maybe, but the logic behind that is, there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt about quantum computing. Think about what's going to happen to our entire financial system, our entire financial lives, if you really have a mass deployment of quantum computing. What usually happens in a tech cycle is you'll have all of the other technologies adopt and change with the new change. Other thing I'll say about quantum computing, it is so far away from when quantum computing capability technologies such as what Google is doing with their quantum computers to hit mainstream. The average everyday person like me and you, we're never going to have the capabilities to use a quantum computer like the quantum computing that Google uses right now for probably another, maybe even 100 years. It's just not going to hit mainstream like that. So the theory is Alphabet, is all these big tech companies, Honeywell and the like, that have crazy amounts of quantum computing power, are they just going to turn into, evil maniacs and hack everything and destroy the world? Unlikely. That's kind of the way I think about it. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's kind of the way I think about it. Let me catch up on some of the comments. I'll try to get to as many as I can. Sean Alexander says, have they tried Neuralink on a human yet? They have, with great success. They've tried, they actually have Neuralink patient, the first successful Neuralink patient. If you go to X and you go to the Neuralink X page, you can see this gentleman. He is unfortunately paralyzed, I believe, from his shoulders down on like some sort of crazy skiing trip. He got the Neuralink chip into his head, and he can play chess and control the chess pieces just by thinking about it, right? That gentleman may be able to walk again in our lifetime, okay? If in 2024, you can have somebody with the Neuralink chip in their head think about the moves on a chessboard and move chess pieces around just by thinking about it, think about what he's going to be able to do with that technology in 10 years, 20 years, right? That's the big play right there. And again, to tie it all back into the conversation, what I was saying is I'm a little nervous with all of these tech companies plowing so much money into these devices. Oh, we have some congestion pricing news here. When I think Elon Musk is going to jump step or leapfrog all that, right? By the time Neuralink reaches all of its, capabilities, we may not even need any of these devices anymore. So you never know. Usually that's the way the world works. You go from one extreme to another. So the extreme we have right now are thousands and thousands of devices. What am I saying? Millions and millions of devices in the field. We may be able to switch and do a complete 180 and go to no devices in the field. You never know. Anyway, we are now looking at the congestion pricing here. New York News Channel 4 is doing a little bit of an interview on the intersection of Broadway and 60th Street, reporting on the new congestion pricing, which is right over here, which essentially states that if you are a motor vehicle operator and you're going to drive south of 60th Street, you're going to get banged for roughly a $9 toll every time you cross south of 60th Street. So we'll walk a little bit further up just so you can see I think they put a sign up, didn't they? Well, these are the congestion pricing thingies. But I thought they put a sign up telling you exactly how much it is. Hey, Troy Atman says no devices, but you'd still need supercompute with data centers supporting the cloud to connect to the internet. Possibly. Now, when I say no devices, this is like probably 100-year change, right? This is like we're thinking like super far out into the future. But, as we kind of talk about CES, as we talk about tech, and as we have that visionary outlook, that's possible. Patrice 2020 says, I am concerned about Neuralink. Criminal activity would be on a whole new level. Perhaps. Now, I'm kind of freaked out about it too. Here's more congestion pricing, people. But this is kind of the way I think about it. every single new technological advancement at first is very foreign to people, right? At first, people have extreme resistance to technologies, and then you have this capitulation, and everybody capitulates and uses the technology. It's the same thing with smartphones, right? I mean, we all probably have that one person in our family at one point or another throughout the last 20 years refused to get a smartphone, refused to be on the internet, because they're like, I don't want those things tracking me, or I don't want, I want to be private, I don't want to be out there. Well, everybody capitulates at some point. It's just kind of the way it is. I'm trying to find the sign, the congestion pricing sign. Oh, we just passed it. Wow, look up here, everybody. 29 degrees outside. So if it's 29 outside right now with the wind chill, I'm telling you guys, it feels like it's maybe in the teens, and that's not an exaggeration. I'm freezing out here. Robert Parker, what's going on? Always a pleasure. So let's check it out. Let's read what it says. So this is the congestion relief zone. A car toll with the Easy Pass is $9. Tolls by mail, it's going to be a little bit higher. And overnight, it's $2.25. Footnote 2020 says, dude, I was that person. I now have an iPhone 16. Well, it's interesting to see for sure. Damn, $9. Well, it was going to be higher at one point. All right, let me catch up on some of the comments. I see Rocky Rocks is here. Jonathan, welcome. Leslie says, how does this congestion pricing work? Do the cars need to stop? No, they just blow right past the cameras right here. And it takes a picture of your license plate and it bills you. It sends you a bill. You have local news doing some reporting right there. Anyway, if you guys are enjoying the live stream tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video and click the subscribe button if you're new. We do these live streams every night starting at 8:45. I'll do one more kind of panoramic shot up to Billionaires Row. You see Central Park Tower, which is the tallest building on Billionaires Row, over 1,500 feet tall. And then the building with the gold top, that's 220 Central Park South. That is a Vornado development. That's the best-selling building on Billionaires Row. And then here is what I would like to consider really the most exclusive building on Billionaires Row, 15 Central Park West. This completed construction in 2008 during the heart of the financial crisis. What's crazy is they had a $2 billion sellout pre-construction during the financial crisis, and it cost them about $1 billion to build. It's a limestone encased facade, and there's over 18,000 individual slabs of limestone that make up this building. But what a lot of people don't know is that those individualized 18,000 plus slabs of limestone were cut from an Indiana rock quarry, which just so happens to be the same rock quarry that was used to construct the Empire State Building. So, A.M. Stern, unbelievable architect, one of the most famous New York architects, but also world-renowned architect, always has a really unbelievable way of bringing out the best in properties. And 15 Central Park West is the epitome of luxury, the epitome of craftsmanship and architecture beauty in New York City, in my opinion. And you can see some similar tones to 220 Central Park South right there. A lot of people oftentimes email me and say, Tom, I hate all of the new buildings on Billionaires Row. They look disgusting. They kind of look dystopian. I don't like Central Park Tower. I don't like 157. I get it. but I very, very seldom will get a complaint about 15 Central Park West or 220 Central Park South. I feel as if a lot of people like that older, timeless stone type architecture as opposed to these just big pencil glass buildings. That's not necessarily my take on it, but a lot of people seem to think that. My favorite one is this building right here. This is 157 West 57th Street. It was developed by Extel, the same developer who developed Central Park Tower, and it is my favorite building on the row. Just so happens to be the first building ever constructed on Billionaires Row as well. Since we're here, we might as well take a pass at 15 Central Park West. Might as well do it. Lori, what's going on? Nina is here. This is Tom. I recall approximately 1 year ago you mentioned the fees up now via the street. Lower working folks will suffer due to low income. They must drive. Yeah, I mean, I think generally speaking, the congestion pricing is a negative for the city. Now, I understand and I also respect that everybody has a differing opinion, but it's really going to hurt people who are forced to drive into the city, particularly at, after hours. You just don't have the means to pay, and you're also going to have services probably go up, right? If you own an HVAC company or an electrical contracting company, right, or really any type of business that has to commute into the city to provide services to clients and customers, well, they're not going to pay the $9. You're going to pay the $9, right? One way or another. Businesses always pass on costs to customers as much as they can. So if you are an electrical contractor or if you're a plumber and you're based in Long Island City and one of these buildings here, you have a leak or something like that and they need a contractor to come out, you're probably going to have your bill be $9 more or $18 more, right? Businesses will just pass on to consumers. The problem is consumers don't have a means to pass on anything to anybody. So they just have to eat it. And who is more likely to be able to eat it? It's going to be rich people as opposed to the working poor. Jonathan from Florida, thank you very, very much for your kind $20 donation. Says, Tom, have a hot coffee to warm up. Thank you, Jonathan, for your donation. Appreciate it very much. And I definitely will after the stream. Thanks once more. This is the main driveway at 15 Central Park West. Robert A.M. Stern building. Just looks absolutely gorgeous. Mike G is Mr. 15 Central Park West himself. But yeah, I love this building. It's my dream and my goal to have a unit either at 15 Central Park West or at 157. But since we've been walking past 15 Central Park West more often, I'm kind of liking it better than 157 for some reason. It just makes me feel like I'm in New York City a little bit more than 157, I think. At least from the exterior. And that's Steinway there. Blue Marlins is the MTA needs money, but the governor, Cuomo and Hochul. Yeah, and there's a lot of, I'll give you an example, right? If we were to do a complete audit, like a complete forensic audit of New York City, the amount of waste and the negligence. Hold on one second. We'll get some of the trolls out of here. A lot of the waste and the gross negligence of the city would really, really shock you. On a lower scale, but funny kind of example, there's been a huge uptick in fare evasion, right? People jumping the turnstiles, not paying for the bus. I mean, nobody pays for the bus. If you think nobody pays for the subway, nobody pays for the bus here. They just walk right on, nobody cares, because if the bus drivers had to enforce people paying the bus fare, he would never get the customers or the riders to where they need to be. It would be impossible. If he had to, fight and argue and haggle with every person who didn't pay. So you would have no buses. It would be totally inoperable. But one of the things that the city has done to kind of combat the fare evasion or the toll evasion in the subways is they've hired security guards to stand at the subway turnstiles. The only thing is the security guards, and again, I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but the vast majority of them, they seem to be very old. They, honest to God, seem to be like 70-year-old men, retired people, on their phones, listening to music, not really paying attention, and everybody just jumps the turnstile anyway. So the city has added a cost to pay these security guards probably $25 an hour, right? It's probably some big government contract. So we've added a cost to have security guards watch people evade the fare. So it's just crazy. And that's just one little teeny example. But there's a lot of examples of negligence and stuff in the city, which I don't think the congestion pricing is going to solve. Because, again, money doesn't solve the problem. If we raise a few $1 billion over the course of a few years with the congestion pricing, that $1 billion, I can guarantee you, is going to vanish like fairy dust. Poof. You're never going to see it. We're not going to know where it goes. They're going to say it's going to go into some capital improvement project, which it's not. It's probably just going to get pocketed via corruption, or grease somebody's palms. That's the way it works in New York. So, but to be fair, there's also problems with every city. It's not exclusive to New York. I still think New York is the greatest city in the world, and it is the best place to come if you want to start a career in pretty much anything, particularly finance or tech. New York City is the place to do that by far. All right, let's head back into Midtown because it is too windy up here. Hey, Brad's Brain, what's going on? We're just talking about CES. Jensen is going to be speaking tomorrow. He's doing the keynote speech at the opening of CES Las Vegas 2025. We'll see what happens. Also, a little bit later in the week, if we want to kind of shift our gears and talk about corporate earnings, one of my biggest winners of 2025 is reporting earnings this week. I've written many, many articles over the course of the past year about how I've turned very bullish, specifically on the boutique investment banks. Right, so on Wall Street, you have the bulge bracket investment banks like your JP Morgan Chase, your Deutsche Banks, your Morgan Stanleys, and your like. But you also have boutique banks, which is like an Evercore, Houlihan Lokey, Jefferies, so on and so on. Jefferies, the stock was about 94% in 2024. Rich Handler's the CEO. They are going to be reporting earnings this week. Do I think that a lot of these boutique banks are going to outperform again in 2025? I don't know, but I'd say maybe, for one reason and one reason only. And I'll try to say this without getting political. We're only talking about the economy and the markets, but I believe you'll see a massive boom in deal making, particularly mergers, okay? And the tail end of the year, you're also probably going to see a massive uptick in initial public offerings or IPOs. Even after the monster year a lot of these investment banks had in 2024, the IPO market was pretty much still closed for business last year. That's just the truth. If you look at a comparative analysis of IPOs that hit the market in 2021 as opposed to the IPOs that hit the market in 2022, 2024, it's closed for business, the IPO market. With this new administration coming in, just think about some of the people who are on the Trump transition team. Think about who's going to be the new SEC chair. Think about who's the new head of commerce, right? Howard Lutnick, CEO or current CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, right? These are all business guys. These are all Wall Street guys. The merger market is going to freaking rip people's face off, which means revenue and investment banks are it's just going to be like a hockey stick, right? More M&A activity, more IPO activity means more income, fee income for big banks, which I think leads to more earnings for big banks. So just keep that in mind as we go into 2025. Particularly keep that in mind as you listen to the earnings call on Wednesday, I believe, of Jefferies. Obviously, Rich Handler is probably going to give a little bit of insight into the outlook of the M&A market, of the IPO market. We'll see what happens. But as we head into earnings season and as you hear all of these mega Wall Street bank CEOs like Jamie Dimon and the like, pay attention to the outlook, right, on M&A. Pay attention to the outlook on IPOs, because that is going to tell you where corporate earnings in the financial sector are going to go. So pay very close attention to that. Hey, LS, good to see you. Appreciate you joining. Hopefully you're in a place much warmer than I am. Larry Adams. I think bonuses for Wall Street come out in early February, I believe. Yeah, Brad's Brain says NVIDIA at a pivotal point chart-wise. We'll see what happens. I have a little bit of a negative. I don't really want to say negative, but I guess, speaking at bull or bear, a tiny bearish outlook for the first 2 quarters of the year. And then I think you'll have, a nice uptick, because a lot of things are extended. A lot of stocks, particularly a lot of the leaders, are below their 50-day moving average, but we'll see. Anything can happen. Hey, GN says used to walk on the Deutsche Bank's trading floor at 60 Wall Street back in the day. Wow. Well, now their trading floor is right here. That's so funny. Yeah, Deutsche Bank was the last standing, really bulge bracket investment bank on the physical street of Wall Street. It was at 60 Wall. And now they are right here. This used to be the former Time Warner building. Now it is the Deutsche Bank Tower. So Deutsche is right here. Which, by the way, is a much better location. If I'm being honest. Wall Street's, it's dead. All of the major banks, hedge funds, they're not really down there. Obviously you have Goldman on, West Street, but it's all Park Avenue, right? JP Morgan Chase just built a $1 billion 270 Park. We have a lot of new developments in the pipeline. We have 350 Park Avenue. I'm not sure if anybody's seen that. If you haven't, you got to look at some of the renderings online for the new 350 Park Avenue building. That is going to be home to Ken Griffin and Citadel Securities. Now, I don't think I like it better than 270 Park, to be quite honest, in terms of the architectural integrity. I'm just being honest. But I want to know your thoughts. So if you Googled 350 Park, look at the most updated rendering. I think I still like 270 a little bit better. Now, Ken Griffin is also going to make a major move down in Brickell, Miami, right off of Brickell Avenue. He's going to build a super tall skyscraper, which is going to be their corporate headquarters, because Citadel relocated their corporate headquarters from Chicago, Illinois to Miami, Florida. And that building is going to be unbelievable. There's going to be hotels in there. There's going to be a huge swimming pool. There's going to be dining. There's going to be a little bit of residential. And then there's going to be, obviously, Citadel. G-Wall77 says NVIDIA is still good for the long term. GN says now if the Hudson Hotel just reopened like Four Seasons. Thank you so much for watching. Yeah, Hudson Yards is awesome. But I will say, Hudson Yards is very, very windy and it's very, very cold. I think the main hotel at the Hudson Yards right now is that Equinox Hotel, which is very, very expensive. Now, speaking of the Hudson Yards and speaking about real estate, the real estate market on the commercial side in New York is very bifurcated, and I think a lot of people that aren't from New York or work in the real estate business kind of get this impression that the commercial real estate market is crumbling and is doing so poorly in New York City, which is true and it's not true. If anything, the commercial real estate in New York City on the upper echelons, right, what I would like to consider the Class A office towers, are doing better than they've ever done in the history of New York City ever. What's happened is, after the pandemic, all of the big companies started to migrate away from the Class B and Class C office towers to Class A product. The problem is there's not a lot of Class A inventory. So I want you to go ahead and do some research of the rentable price per square foot that they're commanding at 1 Vanderbilt, 1 Manhattan West, 2 Manhattan West, 50 Hudson Yards. It's crazy. You're looking at like $200 plus a rentable square foot. And a lot of companies are signing new leases there. So we talked about, my old building, Marsh McLennan, I used to work on the second floor. 1 or 2 floors above me was a quantitative hedge fund by the name of D.E. Shaw, David Shaw & Co. They're one of the best quant firms on the street, along with, 2 Sigma, Jane Street, Citadel, Hudson River Trading, things like that. They've just moved from 1166 Avenue of the Americas. They've moved into, I believe, 2 Manhattan West, and they have an unbelievable office. Now, my buddy, who's a really well-known chef in Manhattan, he was hired away to be the personal chef for D.E. Shaw. So he has a really, really good gig. He just goes into the office, does all the meal prep, all the meal planning, and all the employees at this hedge fund just order their meals on little iPads, and they have like 5-star level service, which is pretty crazy to think about, like some of the amenities that these corporations provide for their employees. It's pretty impressive. But yeah, I mean, the commercial real estate market in New York City is doing really good on the high end, but there's a lot of pain in the B and C class, right? Nobody is going to be able to have their employees return to the office if you're under 1970s, 1980s fluorescent lighting. It's just not going to happen. Anyway, this is 217 West 57th Street. This is Central Park Tower. This is one of the most famous Xtel developments. Ibrahim Azam is joining us. Good to see you. Jax's Plus commercial rates. Oops, I just lost your comment, Jack. Let me go back to it. Jax's Plus commercial real estate has to renew mortgages at higher rates. In most cases, yes, that could definitely be a problem. GN says Bloomberg can take a hint from D.E. Shaw by upgrading their cuisine. Well, Bloomberg appears to have a nice office tower, right? Bloomberg is on the east side, actually close to me, I think. I like the Bloomberg building, especially during the holidays. It's kind of nice. Sean says, Tom, what is the best new building on the Upper West Side? My opinion, that's a really good question because I have 3 projects that I want to talk about. But if I had to pick one, man, that's a really good question, actually. All right, I'm going to go. I'm going to say the new Xtel development. That's what I'm going to go with. And you could see it, actually, right from over here. If you look just north, it'll be a little bit further north of 15 Central Park West. I believe it's on 66th Street, just north of Lincoln Center. If you know where the big News Channel 7 headquarters is, the ABC studios, it's right on Central Park West. That's probably the best new development. But there's a lot of good developments coming on the Upper West Side. And one thing I will say, I like, and this is probably going to be controversial, I like the Upper West Side magnitudes better than the Upper East Side. I'm not an Upper East Side kind of guy. It's just, it feels a little bit too stuffy up there. You know, people are too full of themselves. Upper West Side, it's just a more community feel. People are cool, relaxed. I like the vibe. Upper East Side, it's like people are a little bit too full of themselves up there, I think, in my opinion. But maybe that's just me. GN says this is literally my daily walk itinerary. How have we not bumped into each other? We may have. We definitely may have. It's possible. Optimus 17, what's going on? GGNYC. This is we look after each other on the Upper West Side. I just like it better. Maybe it's because I spend more time there. Omar says, Tom, what are your thoughts on 1 Manhattan Square? Mixed thoughts, and I'll tell you why. The story of how 1 Manhattan Square came about is a little bit of a long story. I could spend like an hour talking about well, I won't get into it because I'm going to talk about it for 2 hours. But it was a very interesting deal, the way they accumulated that land there. But there's too many units. My rule of thumb, right, if you're buying in New York City, especially if you're buying from a developer who commands the price per square foot that Xtel tries to command, just so everybody knows, 1 Manhattan Square, just so we know what we're talking about, that's another Xtel development. So 157, which is right here, that's probably the most iconic Xtel development, right, the first building on Billionaires Row. But they have a very, very luxurious, really, really nice property just off to the left, depending on where you're looking at it from, off to the right, if you're looking north, of the bridges, Manhattan Bridge, or Brooklyn Bridge, I should say. I think there's well over 500 units there. I would say if you want to live there, I would rent. The amenities are always kind of packed just because there's so many people in the building. But in my personal opinion, I really wouldn't buy there. I think if you're looking for like that lifestyle, that experience, buy in a building with less units, because if you think about the resale value later on, you want to have as low competition as possible, right? There's a lot of competition now at the ultra luxury level in New York City. So let's say if you buy it, you live there, 5-7 years, think about your exit, right? When you exit, there's probably going to be, 50 listings on the market in the same building. So you want to buy something that's like a one of one, very exclusive, very bespoke product. I don't think you get that at 1 Manhattan Square. I do think you get that at 157, even though it's an older building. Also, better location. Central Park, always going to do well. Real estate is location, location, location. Not the best location down at 1 Manhattan Square. If anything, many could say it's, well, I can't get into the location stuff, but read between the lines on that. So I would say it's better up here, in my opinion. Comparing price per square foot, right? Would you rather live by the water, all the way down in Lower Manhattan, far away from the train? Or would you rather live right here on 57th Street? Central Park is your backyard. You have Columbus Circle, you have all the trains. You could take the 1 train, you could take the B train, you could take the F train. You're near all the best restaurants. You're near a lot of, work infrastructure, all the offices. I think it's a little bit better here, in my opinion. I mean, what do you think? Would you rather live near Central Park centrally located, or would you rather live, like in the two bridges, or whatever it's called down there? Ooh, Lori, this is the Osborne. Very classy, old school. I love it as well. Yeah, the Osborne's really, really nice. Storm Riders to Central Park. Michelle Henry says depends on the price. It's true. GN says, Tom, want to stroll along Madison, uptown, past... Yeah, we could. The only thing when we do it on the stream, it's so dark there at night, and there's not a lot of lights, and the internet is not too good. But I'm down. I'm down. Let's head downtown a little bit. Now, another thing, there's so many things you have to think about when you're buying real estate in Manhattan. Again, talking about One Manhattan Square, that's a high-rise building. You have to think about your views, right? So let's say, for example, if you buy on a high floor at One Manhattan Square, you're overlooking Tribeca, you're overlooking Midtown Manhattan. There could be a lot of buildings that go up in and around that area near, just north of those NYC houses. If you get something, a front-facing view around here, 57th Street, your views are protected forever, right? You're never going to have a building be built on Central Park South or in Central Park, right? It's just not happening. A lot of the buildings on Central Park South are historically protected. You can't build that high, and you're 100% guaranteed to have nothing built in Central Park. It's protected forever. So that's another thing. A lot of people will rush into buying something. They won't check the neighboring permits, and they won't check the neighboring building plans for some of these buildable lots. And then in 5 years, they have a huge monstrosity blocking all their view. And then they probably just slash the value of their property, maybe by 15 to 20%, maybe more, depending on where you are. But to be honest, I see a lot of value right now in buying townhomes in Manhattan, if you have the money, because those prices have been really depressed. And one of the main reasons, from talking with clients who were in the market to buy a townhome, which switched and did a 180 and then bought a condo in a high-rise, is because the doormen, because they think they have a perceived view of the city being a little bit more dangerous now. So they want the security, they want the exclusivity of living a few stories in the sky and having doormen and security in the building, which I get. So maybe as a little bit of like a pair trade there, you buy the distress in the townhouse market, right? Because that is a big fear, and those property values have gone down. And when the city gets its act together, cleans up the mess, then you're going to get a premium on that, right? So it's kind of like, think about into the future. I think the city is going to get a lot cleaner and a lot safer. So if you're in the market and you're dead set on a townhome, I'd say buy the townhome, because you have a better opportunity for price appreciation on your exit, as opposed to depending on what condo you buy. Just depends. Anyway, if you guys are enjoying the live stream, feel free to leave a like on the video and click the subscribe button if you're new. We do these streams every day starting at 8:45. Sean says, have I ever eaten at Masa, Columbus Circle? I have not, but there are some pretty good restaurants at Columbus Circle. There's a French restaurant called Per Se. It's very, very expensive, but it's more of like a dining experience, like a fine dining experience. Storm Riders. I have my eye on a cozy view from 15 Central Park West. It's an amazing, amazing building. Now, I filmed a standalone video kind of talking about the history of 15 Central Park West and some of the notable residents there. You have one of the most interesting hedge fund managers, in my personal opinion, Dan Loeb. I'm not sure, maybe some of you know him, maybe some of you don't. Dan Loeb is the founder of Third Point. Dan's story is very fascinating. You gotta research the story about how Dan Loeb started his hedge fund, but anyway, I digress. He has a really nice unit there, and also the former CEO of Goldman Sachs, Lloyd Blankfein, has a really, really nice unit there. But I'm most envious, jokingly obviously, maybe not, of Lloyd's unit. If you just go on YouTube and you type in Lloyd Blankfein Bloomberg interview, the last few Bloomberg interviews he's done, the studio backdrop is actually from his apartment at 15 Central Park West, and you could see the entire skyline of the Upper East Side. It's just an unbelievable place he's got. He has an awesome, awesome place. But this is 53 West 53rd Street. Speaking about, nice condos in the city, 53 West 53rd is really nice too. You can kind of get a little bit of a view in there with, it's a very angular design. But anyway, if you're just joining, we were talking about the CES 2025 that is starting tomorrow from Vegas. We're going to have Jensen giving a keynote speech, the CEO of NVIDIA. And then on the earnings front, we're going to have Jefferies, the boutique bank, which is right over here. They're going to be reporting earnings Wednesday, I believe. That's been an unbelievable winner. I think they were about 94% last year. And, as we were kind of writing about, if you were reading some of our newsletters last year, it was very interesting, the price action in a lot of these bank stocks early on into the year. Right, one of the things I like to say is that, price action oftentimes is the most important thing to look at in a stock, because stocks are discounting mechanisms. Right, they're forward-looking by about 6 months. So what we've noticed is that, at the very, very beginning of last year, you started to see a lot of these bank stocks, particularly the boutiques, like the Houlihan Lokis, Evercores, Jefferies, all turn up and trade above their 50-day moving averages, trade above their 10-day moving averages, and really trend quite nicely. And that was the market telling us that there's going to be a major shift in business activity in America, right? After a massive tightening cycle by the Federal Reserve, which pretty much shut the IPO market off, shut the, M&A market off. You had this massive earnings decline across the board. Bank stocks became depressed. And now the market, is essentially telling us that earnings are going to turn up again. So if earnings are going to turn up again, that means, investment banking activity should turn up again. So, a 94% year in a lot of those boutique bank stocks leads me to believe that the next 4 years is probably going to be just an absolute boom in M&A markets, which also is probably good news if you're a banker, like an M&A banker. You're probably going to have some quite healthy bonuses going forward. Hey, Al Baker, what's going on? Good to see you. I know you're joining from Florida. A lot warmer than where we are right here in New York. Yeah, D-piece is Charles Schwab on the left. This is Schwab. And this is 290 Avenue of the Americas. I didn't know, but this is actually a Trump building, by the way. But this is home to Neuberger Berman. One of my good buddies works here. Ibrahim Azam says, hey Tom, do you think New York or Miami has a better future in the coming years? I think they'll both have a really bright future. But I think you'll see, I'm trying to figure out how to explain this. And this is just my opinion, I could be wrong. I would say if you get, like, let's just talk about buying real estate for a second to make this comparison. I would say if you're going to buy something right now at these prices in New York or Miami, I would sell Miami and I would go long New York, because we've gotten, I mean, the price appreciation in property in Miami has been nuts. So that would be my trade. I would sell Miami, and that doesn't mean I'm negative on Miami, by the way, but I would sell Miami long New York, and then I would do that trade again. When New York recovers, I would sell New York, buy Miami, because by that time I would buy Miami's dip, if that makes sense. This dip in the Miami housing market that we are going to get is probably going to be more isolated towards the condo market. I would buy that dip in Miami. But just think about scarcity, right? Think about scarcity. What is more of a scarce asset or a scarce product in Miami? Probably single family. You know, every day we talk about a new condo project, a new high-rise project coming up on the market in Miami, Florida. So you got to kind of think about dilution there. Oh, I think they're taking down some of the Christmas stuff here. They took down the candy canes. We might as well see the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree one more time. GN. This is the beauty about New York, is it's one big social club. Very true. Stories galore about meeting all of Tom's after-mentioned names just randomly. Yeah. On the street. Yeah, you're right. That's like one of the amazing things about New York, and why I think, you know, still, if you're graduating college and looking for career opportunities, New York City is really the only way to go. I mean, there's so much opportunity here, it's really unbelievable. And all the major players in every industry, generally speaking, are pretty much here. It's a good point. Any day you could run into, you know, any of these big business leaders. I was saying the other day, not the other day, it was like a month ago now, I ran into the CEO and founder at Gallagher Steakhouse of Archegos. And I was like, what? How the heck is he here? Because I thought, you know, he was in jail. But he was already sentenced, but he has an additional sentencing now in January. But I walked into Gallagher's, I was like, what? I was like, how the heck is he here? Now, Archegos, obviously one of the big hedge fund blow-ups. A lot of people, I remember, it was very reminiscent. You know, it made me think of a lot of the articles I was publishing at that time. There was a lot of people getting very negative on the market around that time. But that's actually the time when you should be getting very, very bullish. When you have those big blow-ups. You know, think about Silicon Valley Bank, think about Archegos, think about on the crypto side, like 3 Hours Capital. You know, I remember the exact day when 3 Arrows Capital went under and these Sam Bankman-Fried, the FTX stuff. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is the time, the opportunity to go all in, to buy. This is the bottom of the Bitcoin and crypto markets, and therefore it is. Usually you're at the bottom of the market when it's the darkest and when the most crazy stuff is happening, when you have mass liquidations, when you have hedge funds going bust, banks going bust. It's like everywhere you turn, it's chaos, it's fear. I mean, just think and do an audit of when all of this was happening, right? Just think back when Archegos went under, when that collapsed. Think back to when FTX went under. Everybody was like, oh my gosh, this is the end. This is the big crescendo for crypto. It's over, right? Same thing with 3 Arrows Capital. But if you paid attention, right, like a lot of people I know who run funds on the street picked up all of 3 Arrows Capital stuff for like pennies on the dollar. And they made fortunes on all this stuff, right? So it's usually the bleakest, the darkest, the craziness right at the bottom. And it's the opposite usually at the top. Extreme euphoria, everybody thinks they're, the best. Which I think we're getting there now. Maybe a little bit of an intermediate term top should do, pull back a little bit, little shakeout, and then turn the burners on again. Anyway, beautiful shot of Rockefeller Center Christmas tree. I'm not too sure how much longer this is going to be up, but it does look really nice. Austin City Limits, what's up? Dale, good to see you.
One of us has to invest in a selfie stick.
Let's see if anybody's ice skating. Definitely all the tourists have gone home. Pretty empty. Or maybe it's just very cold. This is what you would call in season now. Down in South Florida. After the holidays, everybody really migrates down, a lot of the snowbirds, so when we start doing the streams from Miami, I think things are going to be crazy down there. In a good way. There actually seems to be a lot of people here for Sunday night. I think tomorrow's really the first day everybody's back in the office. I know, Reggie's like, what a tree, hate to see it go. as we prep for the holidays of 2025. You know, I already walked into like CVS, Walgreens, and they already have Valentine's Day stuff out. I was like, oof, a little bit too fast. Let's just pump the brakes on that. Every year it's like the corporations push the holidays on us, or every major holiday a little bit earlier. You know, it's like early August. We already have Halloween stuff out. It's like, let us, enjoy the rest of the summer. No way. Thesis and Easter? Oh, Maron, that's crazy. Easter stuff is wild. That's wild. The Easter stuff now, wild. GN says, Tom, consider getting a small, noticeable spy camera and walking through some of the local watering holes. That could be interesting, but also maybe get me into some trouble. But I kind of like those videos, like the ambiance. It's kind of nice, like nightlife stuff. That could be cool. I just can't wait until the summer so we can get back to the village. Very seldom do we go down to the village during the winter, but I'm telling you, if you're not from New York and you're looking for a time to come to New York City and enjoy, come to NYC in the summer and hang around the village. You're going to have an awesome time. Hey, Canadian, thank you so much for your 5 CAD donation. This is great walk, man. Fun to see New York. Not too busy. Thank you. And stay warm up there. Canada is probably frozen right now. I got a few buddies who live in Calgary, I believe it's called. Calgary? Not too sure where that is. I should say ex-friends, Twitter friends. Harry says Bitcoin back above 99,000. Wow, great. Yeah, we managed to rally back above the 50-day. And we've had 2 consecutive daily closes mid-range right above the 50. So we'll see what happens. I mean, if we can crack back over new highs, I think as an entry point, usually you could use the 50-day moving average as an entry point right around there as a good risk-reward trade. But if you have a core position, right, if you have a big core position in Bitcoin, obviously the 50, which is here, is a good risk-reward entry point. But once it cracks over the prior high, that's when you give it huge amounts of gas, because usually once it cracks over a previous high, you have this gap up to even higher highs, and obviously good risk-reward setup, right? And if the trade goes against you, just blow the thing out. You lose some money. No worries. Jax is with American money, you could buy a beautiful home for $600,000 in Calgary. That seems like a lot of money. 600 grand. I mean, from a lot of people I know who live in Canada, they say, Tom, if you're complaining about an affordability crisis in the United States, he's like, Canada is 10 times worse. Which I can kind of see why, because if we're really being honest, okay, the U.S. doesn't really have a housing crisis. Okay, and I know that's going to get me in a lot of hot water. I'm being a little bit facetious, by the way. But you can go to Middle America and buy a house for 90 grand. You can go to upstate New York and buy a house for 90 grand, right? You can probably go to places in rural middle of nowhere and buy a place for 50 grand. It's all about desirability, location, right? What's desirable? A lot of people want to live in Midtown Manhattan. A lot of people want to live in Del Mar, California, San Diego, Silicon Valley, San Francisco, Houston, Texas, Miami, Florida. These places are expensive because they have ample job opportunities, great locations, great climates, great weather, good economies. But you can buy something in upstate New York right now, write a check for $100,000. You get yourself a whole house, lots of land, Same thing with Canada. But, Canada is a massive country, but the vast majority of the population, I don't know the exact statistics, so I'm not going to say it, but I think it's over 90%. Again, you fact check me on this. I don't know the exact statistic. But I think it's 90% of the population live within like a few hundred miles from the U.S. border surrounding like Toronto. Everything else is just like uninhabitable because it's so cold. But you can get, quote unquote, affordable homes in the U.S. Jack says Tom and Sabrina Fair are anti-Semites. All right, we will block you because you were just a troll. Reggie 44 says not for 90,000, more like 200. That's not bad for an okay house. 250 is still okay. Cross over 2 more avenues. Yeah, CB says you can get affordable homes but no jobs though. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the trade-off, right? But I mean, if you really, really wanted to do it, if you wanted to grind it out in a big city and make a lot of money, in theory, right? If you live in one of those places where you could buy a home for $100,000, $90,000, if you have $1 million, write a check for the 100, pay off the house, and then just live off the interest. I mean, if you're in a low cost of living place, but essentially the point I'm trying to make is that things are expensive for a reason and things are cheap for a reason, right? Also think about the medical care. Yes, it's very expensive in New York City, but we have some of the best healthcare on the entire planet. God forbid something happens to you. You live in Manhattan. You have the best doctors, the best healthcare anywhere in the world are here. Same thing with Houston, Texas, right? You have some of the best, cancer facilities, cancer hospitals anywhere in the entire world in Houston. So you kind of get what you pay for, is the old saying. Alan says America has the most expensive healthcare, though. That's true. One could argue that's the reason why we have the best healthcare, but I don't want to. We're nearing the last 15 minutes of the stream. I don't want to spark a big argument. But hey, Yusuf says, hey Tom, I currently live in Houston, Texas, but originally from Long Island, New York. I do have to say both places are amazing for medical care. Yeah, particularly for Long Island. I mean, You have a lot of really good medical facilities on the island too. Gifts and souvenirs. Anybody ever stay in the Crowne Plaza Hotel in Times Square? We're very close to the French investment bank, BNP Paribas. Emmanuel says, Tom, did you hear doctors are going on strike? I did not hear that. Where, in the U.S.? Huh, interesting. I heard there was a big strike in South Korea for doctors. Wow, Mark Francis says, I went to MD Anderson for my cancer treatment, highly recommended, but it was expensive. But what's the alternative? Yeah, I mean, you can't put a price on that. I have a buddy, well, my friend's daughter, which is so tragic. She has pancreatic cancer, very young. She's a year younger than me. And they sent her to that Anderson in Houston. Isn't MD Anderson in Houston? It has to be. Yeah, that he was telling me.
I love New York.
Yeah, I think that's what he said. Yeah, MD Anderson in Houston, Texas. Yeah, that's like one of the best hospitals for pancreatic cancer specifically, I think. But yeah, it's terrible. I mean, when you hear stories like that, it's like I'm so thankful for like my health. Anytime you have a health scare, it's like you kind of realize you're like, holy shit. It's like I'll give anything I have to be better. Like I don't care about anything else right now. I just want to live normally, be able to walk around like I'm doing now. Like it's such a blessing that you have health. I know it sounds cliche, but it's true. Like if you're ever at a time in life where you're going through like aggressive treatments or you're inoperable, like that's exactly how you feel. You're like, I just want to walk around and just be normal and just walk around and just do that. It's crazy. I've had that experience once, not with cancer, with a different illness. And it's like, dude, I will give anything I just want to walk around and just be normal. So, can't take it for granted. And that's the thing that sucks about pancreatic cancer specifically, is that in most cases, it's totally undetectable. And the only time you know you have the pancreatic cancer is when you start showing the symptoms of it. The problem is, when you start showing symptoms of pancreatic cancer, like almost 100% of the time, that means it's very, 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 very late stage, like extremely late stage. So it's really disheartening. Times Square is actually is busier than I expected. All right, let's look at the red steps. Oh, it's not too crowded. We might as well go up. Yeah, Belinda says don't take anything for granted. It's true. I definitely don't. At least I try not to. Oh man, solo flyer. I'm sorry to hear that. Really sorry to hear that. Oops. Sorry. All right. I've only been up here a handful of times, and I think every single time I've been up there has been with you guys. This is actually kind of cool. All right, let's go to the... Wow, it is cool. Nick says I'm on Earth camera. All right, let's figure out where this Earth camera is. I've been looking for it forever. I think it's right here. I think it's those three. It's one of those three cameras there, I think. Maybe you guys could see if I'm looking the right way, but I believe that's it right there on the corner of 47th. Oh, that's it? I'll try to wave at the camera. I wonder if they have to get like permitting or permission from the city to put those cameras up there. You know, Broadway does kind of look like there's a lot less traffic on it. This is the Edition Hotel. I think I said this before, but I used to work with this guy who ran all of the permitting for T-Mobile. So his job was to essentially go to a lot of building, like landlords and operators, and try to strike deals with them to put like antennas and air raves and stuff like that on the buildings. And he was telling me, he's like, some of these landlords make a crazy amount of money just by allowing an antenna to go up. All right, let me try to navigate our way down. Oops. All right, let's go over here and make a left and head out. When I was a teenager, I used to work right here on the corner, but this express went out of business. I wonder what they're going to put here, because if they sell the building, they should actually tear it down. I don't know if they have the air rights to build higher, but this is a low-rise building right here, this old Express Times Square. John Doe says you must be freezing. Yes, generally speaking, I'd say I am. But after like hour one, I'm really not that cold anymore. This brings back memories. I remember I would do like the floor plan, the stocking overnight, And I remember working here around Times Square, and all this confetti would blow in the store. This is 3 floors, this thing here. St. Joseph. This is buy a coffee. I probably will when we cut the stream off. I gotta get home. Gotta get up early tomorrow. It's kind of back to reality. Everybody is going to be back in the office and working, and a lot of attorneys are back in the office and working. I've had a lot of deals that were like hung up because obviously we had Thanksgiving, and then you have Hanukkah, then you have Christmas. It's like everybody calls it a day until the new year. Well, it'll be interesting to see where U.S. markets open tomorrow. What are S&P futures doing now? The last I checked, which was like 2 hours ago, before going on the live stream, we had negative for S&P, NASDAQ, and the Dow. But if Bitcoin's getting a big bid after... I think Bitcoin is back over 99,000. But Asian markets are down. At least the last time I checked. Nikkei is down. I'm just excited. If you're just joining, for really the first hour of the stream, we talked about a lot of tech. Obviously, tomorrow is going to be a big day. We're going to hear from Jensen, the CEO of NVIDIA. He's giving that keynote speech at CES Las Vegas. And then we're going to have Jefferies reporting earnings. That was one of my biggest winners of last year, Jefferies Investment Bank. So should be an exciting week. I think we're also going to get Fed minutes a little bit later in the week, but that's almost like it's not even really that important because we know what's going to be in it. Now, here's another thing that I'll say. I'd much rather have futures red throughout the night, a gap down on the open, and rally throughout the day. That is actually very reminiscent of bull market activity, as opposed to futures open green, we gap up on the open, and we fade the entire day. You actually want to see the opposite. You want to see a kind of a weak open, a red open. You know, maybe we gap down on the S&P, we filled that gap, and rally into the close. That is very good activity. Anyway, we got to head back. Jack says Buffett has been hoarding cash. What does he know? Well, I mean, there's actually a lot of cash on the sidelines, not just from Buffett. all around. I mean, money market balances are very, very high. Let's see if they have the tree here. Ooh, no, they took it down. That's the BNP Paribas, the French bank. It's unfortunate. Well, the holidays are over, technically. Well, there is 12 days of Christmas, but you know what I mean. Wow, 28 degrees. 2 degrees Celsius out. With the wind chill. I'm not sure if you guys could tell, by the way. Can you hear any wind? Because the wind is like absolutely blasting tonight. And it feels like it's in the teens. Cosmos says no wind. Perfect. Anyway, I think we'll go ahead and call it a night because it is getting late. Just a quick reminder, we will be sending out our 2025 Outlook investor letter this week. If you want to subscribe to our Substack, you can just scan the QR code on your screen, punch in your email. Be on the lookout for that this week. If you enjoyed the stream, feel free to leave a like, subscribe, and we will be back here tomorrow, probably doing a total post-analysis of what Jensen says about AI. Hopefully he'll throw in some hints about, the future of NVIDIA and maybe even some nuclear energy talk. We'll see. Mohammed, thank you. Troy Atman, Ben, Connie Ruiz, Professor Dario, Cosmo, all of our moderators, Roland, Unij23, Patrice 2020, Chloe, thank you. TD, Teresa Diaz, Situation Room, I'll see you later. Bobby B, Steph UF, Ivan Hernandez, Nothing Something, Daily Watcher, Austin City Limits, Luis Fernando, Johnny, Anthony, Martin, Joseph Hardaway, Sabrina Fair. See you guys soon.